What's up, YouTube? I'm Ace Palomero, South Texas Realtor, proud son of the Rio Grande Valley, and someone who prefers chicken to turkey. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is mainly about the class action lawsuit against the National Association of REALTORS, and I guess by extension the Texas Association of REALTORS, my thoughts on it, as well as recent news that will likely affect the housing market. So let's get to it. So there was a class action lawsuit filed in Missouri against the National Association of Realtors, NAR for short, and the four largest national real estate broker franchises: Realty, Home Services of America, Remax, and Keller Williams. And this lawsuit claims that the defendants in the case conspired to artificially keep the commissions that home sellers paid out inflated. And they did this by violating state and federal antitrust laws. According to justice.gov, if you're not familiar with antitrust laws prohibit anti-competitive conduct and mergers that deprive American consumers, taxpayers, and workers of the benefits of competition. Speaking of which, check out this article by S&P Global, and this is from October. Apparently there were 7 U.S. bank mergers and acquisition deals announced in September. At that point in time, that would make the total number of transactions for 2023 at 79. And I just checked this today. This is from the database from federalreserve.gov, and the number of filings for mergers and acquisitions is at 102, and this is according to a release from November 17. For me, this is a sign of a contracting, not an expanding economy, regardless of what Janet Yellen says. While we're on it, more economic news. Regulations from the California Air Resources Board start next year, 2024. That's less than 2 months away. And whatever affects trucking is going to affect everything else. Companies, producers, sellers are always going to pass as much of the cost to do business along to their consumers. According to Yahoo Finance, more and more Americans, up to 3 times as much, are more likely to take hardship withdrawals from their 401k, to the point where Fidelity, if you don't know, Fidelity is a large financial services company, actually felt the need to make a publication on it, or a public statement on it. Essentially Americans are taking out of their savings in order to pay for things that they need today. The CFO of Airbnb sold over 4,000 of his shares recently. It seems to look like this is a broader trend of insider selling at Airbnb. Looks like, I guess, that sector of the housing market is also contracting. For me, all this is indicators of an economy that is on the downturn. And I know real estate is local, but real estate is still affected by the economy as a whole. Let's get back to the lawsuit. So the jury found NAR and the other defendants liable, and the lawsuit alleges that the listing brokers are required by the local MLS, the multiple listing services, to offer compensation for the buyer's agent in order for them to list on the MLS. Like, commissions typically work like this. So the seller and the listing agent, the seller's agent, they agree on a commission, and whatever that commission is, it's typically anywhere like 5-6%. They also agree on how much the listing agent or the listing brokerage will split with the buyer's agent if the buyer has their own agent. And this is all like negotiable, you know, when you sign that listing agreement for sellers and whenever you sign that buyer's representation agreement for buyers. Commissions are always negotiable. I don't know if that lawsuit, or if the jurors considered that the buyers and their agents also negotiate, the compensation for that buyer's agent. One thing is, though, buyer's agents have historically advertised their services as free, because usually the commission coming from the seller, which gets split between both seller's agent and the buyer's agent is enough to cover their fee. Also, if you're a buyer or a seller, I mean, you should expect your potential agent that you plan to work with to negotiate for themselves, to negotiate their commissions. Because if they can't negotiate for themselves, how are they going to negotiate on your behalf? Another issue that the lawsuit brings up is that, I guess it's a issue of transparency. So brokerages and agents, they can see the commissions being offered to buyers agents by the listing agent and the listing broker, but buyers and sellers can't see that. So the lawsuit's saying that consumers, it's hard for consumers to see if they're only being like pushed towards houses that are offering higher compensation for the buyer side. Other issues that are presented, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but other issues that allegedly keep commissions artificially high. And these are the defendants' policies and procedures. These are trainings on how to negotiate commission, franchise agreements to comply with the National Association of REALTORS Code of Ethics and to join and to comply with the rules of local realtor associations, and the fact that executives from the corporate defendants have actively participated in the management and operation of the National Association of REALTORS, like in their daily operations. So NAR and the other defendants have been ordered to pay at least $1.8 billion to hundreds of thousands of homeowners in Missouri. NAR does plan to appeal, and this case will likely take several years to play out. Recently, there was a copycat lawsuit filed here in Texas against the Texas Association of REALTORS and several regional associations. Keller Williams and Home Services of America are also defendants in this lawsuit. Now, this is according to HomeWire, CBS News, and Housing.com, but these are possible ramifications. So sellers are more likely to see a more immediate, I guess, benefit to this, because if they end up losing their appeal, or if the buyers or sellers are no longer required to pay out buyer agents commissions, the total commission will be less. So sellers will end up taking home more money after they sell their property. But at the same time, I could also see the overall total price being lower, because you'll likely be getting less eyes on the property at the same time, because either less or even no buyers agents. For buyers, you could argue that the total price will also be lower, especially if you're not using an agent. But at the same time, if you want representation, you're gonna have to pay for that representation up front, and that's in addition to all your other closing costs. Some people think that buyers agents will disappear entirely, and real estate agents will only work for sellers, just like how it is in other countries. For us agents, I mean, the pay structure could change. Maybe we'll majority of us will only work for flat fees, or we'll charge per hour. I mean, I could definitely see that there'll be less bloat in the industry, and I think this is a good thing. There are apparently 1.6 million realtors in the U.S., compared with and this is according to Redfin, the 1.5 million homes for sale back in October. So there are more realtors than there are active listings, which is kind of wild. Less homes than realtors. Regardless of how this all plays out, I think changes will happen, and to what extent and exactly what those changes look like, it's hard to say right now. But I think change is good. I mean, there's way too many of us. The barrier to entry to be a real estate agent, in my opinion, is way too low. All you need is a high school diploma and a GED, or a GED, and then yeah, it doesn't take much to get that real estate sales agent certification from the state. Um, some other YouTubers, content creators, like who are also agents, they're suggesting probably a 2 or 4 year course in order to be able to work as an agent. That could be a good thing. Like it might mean the industry is stable or becomes more stable. Right now, I think it's like a 90% attrition rate for like your first year. There was a mortgage loan officer I was talking to, I think last year. He used to be an agent as well, but now he's just doing loans. But what he told me was there's about maybe 1,000 like active real estate license holders in the valley, and maybe 100 make enough to where, like, selling real estate is all they have to do to put food on the table and pay their bills. But yeah, I think this is gonna shake up the industry, cause a little chaos, and chaos is a ladder. Let me finish with this little interesting nugget. So according to Statista, the real estate industry spent over $135 million lobbying in 2022. So according to Statista, the National Association of REALTORS spent over $84 million lobbying. So my question is, who in the real estate industry spent the other like $50 million lobbying? I mean, just off the top of my head, I can think of a couple big names. One of them actually just won a major lawsuit, but it was over false advertising, consumer deception, not violating antitrust laws. Yeah, I'm wondering who footed the bill for lawyers to come after the National Association of Realtors and these other big brokerages. Because lawyers, like everybody else, they don't work for free. They typically charge flat fees, hourly fees, retainers, and contingency fee arrangements. And the percentage of the contingency fee is anywhere from 33% to 40%, according to the first result on Google. I don't know. I just found it interesting that the lawsuit talked about inflated commissions, but it didn't talk about, and I probably need to double check that it didn't talk about this, but at least the first pass I made from reading that entire lawsuit, or the filings for the lawsuit, it did not talk about inflated house prices. So, yeah, I mean, I'll definitely admit, just like every industry, just like every profession, there's bad realtors, there's bad real estate agents out there. And yeah, like they are part of the problem, but if we're talking about inflation, inflated house prices, inflated cost of living, like they're just part of the problem, because
we're all in this together. Yes, we are. We're all stars. That means something, you know it.